AITA for breaking off my engagement because my fiancé made an offensive joke about me to his friends? I'm 29F, got engaged to my fiancé Ethan, 31M, about 8 months ago. We'd been dating for 4 years. Everything seemed great until last month when I discovered he'd been making jokes about me behind my back. It started when I was getting ready for work one morning. Ethan was in the shower. His phone was on the nightstand buzzing constantly. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the notifications were going off nonstop. I glanced at it. Group chat with his friends. The most recent message was from Ethan. He'd sent a photo of me sleeping. I was drooling slightly. My hair was a mess. He'd captioned it. Even knocked out, she can't stop talking. Look at her mouth hanging open like she's about to start rambling about some random work drama nobody cares about. His friends had responded with laughing emojis. One said, LOL, she's hilarious. Another said, that's why you're marrying her though, right? Ethan responded, honestly sometimes I wonder, she's exhausting. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I didn't confront him immediately, didn't want to seem like I was snooping, but I spent the rest of the day replaying that message, replaying him calling me exhausting, replaying him taking a photo of me vulnerable and mocking me to his friends. I couldn't focus at work, kept thinking about what else he'd said about me, what other jokes had been made, what his friends actually thought of me. That night, I brought it up casually, asked Ethan about the group chat, asked what they talked about. He got defensive immediately, said his group chat was private, asked why I was looking at his phone. I said the notifications were going off and I'd glanced at it, that I'd seen a message from him, that I'd read it and felt hurt. He said I shouldn't have looked, that it was a private conversation between him and his friends, that I was invading his privacy. I said I didn't intentionally read it, that I'd seen it by accident, that the real issue was what he'd written, that he'd taken a mocking photo of me and sent it to his friends. He said that was just joking around, that his friends joke about their girlfriends and wives all the time, that it didn't mean anything, that I was being sensitive. I asked what she's exhausting meant, if that was a joke. He said yes, that it was hyperbole, that I do talk a lot sometimes and his friends find it funny. I said there's a difference between lighthearted teasing and mocking someone while they're asleep and vulnerable, that sending a photo of me drooling was cruel, that calling me exhausting wasn't funny. He said I was overreacting, that everyone jokes about their partners, that it was normal, that I shouldn't take it so seriously. But it didn't feel like normal joking, it felt deliberate, it felt mean-spirited, it felt like he was building a narrative with his friends that I was annoying and exhausting. I let it go that night, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Over the next week, I noticed other things, the way Ethan would roll his eyes when I started talking, the way he'd interrupt me mid-sentence, the way he'd make comments like here we go again when I'd bring up anything personal. I started paying closer attention to how he treated me, and I realized he'd been subtly dismissive for months, maybe longer. I'd just been too in love to notice. 2 weeks later, Ethan's friends came over for poker night. I made appetizers, set up the living room, tried to be a good host. While they were playing, I was in the kitchen cleaning up. I could hear them talking in the other room, laughing. Then I heard my name. One of his friends said, so Ethan, when are you gonna trade her in for a newer model? Ethan laughed, said, man, I don't know, she's already talking about wedding colors and guest lists, and I haven't even set a date. I think she just wants the wedding, not the marriage. His friend responded, so she's one of those girls? Ethan said, completely, she has no idea what she wants, just knows she wants the big party. I stood there in the kitchen frozen, listening to my fiancé reduce me to a stereotype, listening to him mock my vision for our wedding, listening to him suggest I didn't actually want to marry him. I came into the living room, asked Ethan if we could talk. He said after the game. I said no. We went into the bedroom. I told him I'd heard what he said about me wanting the wedding not the marriage, about me being one of those girls. He got angry, said I was eavesdropping again, that I was invading his private conversations, that his friends say things and he just goes along with it, that he didn't actually mean any of it. I asked why he'd say it if he didn't mean it. He said because his friends were joking and he was trying to fit in, that he didn't want to look like he was completely whipped by his fiancée. I said being respectful toward me isn't being whipped, it's basic decency, that you don't muck your partner to your friends, that you don't suggest or questioning the relationship to people you're supposed to be close to. He said I was being dramatic, that all guys talk like that I needed to grow up and realize that's just how male friendships work. I said maybe that's how his male friendships work, but it's not acceptable to me, that I don't want to marry someone who mocks me behind my back, who takes photos of me vulnerable and sends them to his friends, who questions our relationship to make himself look cool. He said I was overreacting over nothing, that I was being manipulative by making him choose between his friends and me, that this was classic girlfriend behavior, trying to isolate him. That's when I realized this wasn't going to change, that Ethan wasn't going to suddenly respect me, that this was who he was and he had no interest in being different. I said I couldn't marry him, that I was calling off the engagement. He laughed, actually laughed, said I was being ridiculous, said I'd regret this, said I was throwing away a good relationship over a joke. I said it's not one joke, it's a pattern, it's months of subtle disrespect that I've been ignoring, it's you not valuing me, it's you mocking me to your friends, it's you trying to make me feel crazy for having legitimate concerns. He said I was the problem, that I was too sensitive, that I ruined poker night, that I was being unfair to him. I told him to leave, he refused, said this was his house too, I said I don't care, I wanted him out. Update 2 weeks later. Ethan didn't leave that night, we had a huge fight, he said I was making a mistake, that I'd regret calling off the engagement, that nobody would want to date me at 29 because I was used goods, his exact words. That comment should have been my final confirmation, but I was already there. The next morning, I asked him to move out, he refused, said he wasn't leaving his house, said I needed to get over this and stop being emotional. I called my best friend Jasmine, she came over, helped me pack Ethan's belongings into boxes, he watched us do it, looking furious but not stopping us. When we finished, I told him he needed to leave, he said he'd go to his friend's place temporarily but this wasn't over, that we weren't done. I said we absolutely were done. He left around 6 p.m., took most of his clothes, said he'd get the rest later, said we needed to talk about the ring, that he wanted it back since the engagement was off. I took the ring off and put it on the counter, didn't say anything. He left with it. The next day, Ethan texted me long messages about how I'd overreacted, how I'd thrown away 4 years over a joke, how nobody else would put up with me, how I was going to be alone because I was too sensitive. I blocked his number. Then his friends started reaching out on Instagram, on Facebook, through mutual friends, all saying similar things, that I was being unfair, that Ethan was a good guy, that I'd ruined his life, that I was crazy for breaking up with someone over jokes. One of them, a guy named Brandon, sent me a direct message, said, you know Ethan really cares about you, he's devastated, stop being a bitch and work it out dash. I blocked him too. My family got involved, my mother called me, said I was making a mistake, that Ethan was a good man and good men were hard to find, that I shouldn't throw away an engagement over miscommunication. I told my mother what he'd said about me, what he'd called me, how he'd mocked me, she said all men say things like that it was normal, that I needed to learn to deal with it if I wanted to be married. I said I didn't want to be married to someone who didn't respect me, she said I was being unrealistic, that no man was going to treat me like a princess forever, that marriage was compromise. I said respecting your partner isn't a luxury, it's a baseline, that I wouldn't compromise on that. She got angry, said I was too picky, that I'd end up alone, that my standards were too high. My father called separately, he said he supported my decision, that what Ethan did was disrespectful, that his friends shouldn't have said those things and Ethan should have defended me instead of joining in, that I deserved better. My father got it, my mother didn't. Update 1 month later. Ethan's been trying to contact me through other people, sent me flowers with a note asking to talk, I threw them away, showed up at my work, I had security escort him out, called my coworkers trying to get my number, I changed my number. He's been posting things on social media that seem directed at me, vague posts about fake friends and people who don't appreciate you and knowing your worth dash. His friends are all commenting supportive things, calling me names, saying I'm crazy. I found out through a mutual friend that Ethan's been telling people I broke up with him because I was unhappy with his salary, that I wanted someone richer, that I was a gold digger who dumped him because his bonus wasn't big enough. That's completely false, I make a decent salary, we had similar financial situations, money had never been an issue between us. But he's rewritten the narrative, made himself the victim, made me the villain. Some of our mutual friends have started distancing themselves from me, apparently believing Ethan's version of events, taking a side because he's been more vocal about it, because he's the one reaching out to them. I lost some friendships over this, people I'd known for years, people who didn't even ask my side, just accepted his version. It hurt, but not as much as staying with someone who didn't respect me would have hurt. My ex-fiancé's mother reached out, she was nicer than I expected, said she understood why I'd ended things, that she'd talked to Ethan about his behavior, that she was disappointed in him, that she hoped he'd reflect on his actions. I appreciated her message, at least his mother got it. I started therapy, working through how I'd ignored red flags, how I'd made excuses for his behavior, how I'd almost married someone who didn't value me. My therapist asked why I thought I'd overlooked his disrespect for so long. I said because he was charming most of the time, because I loved him, because I didn't want to see what was happening, because society tells women to be forgiving, to compromise, to accept that this is just how relationships work. But it's not, and I'm not doing that anymore. Final update 3 months later. Ethan's moved on, he's dating someone new, found out through Instagram, she looks happy in the photos, I hope she is, I hope he treats her better than he treated me. I haven't seen or spoken to him since the day I had security escort him out of my workplace. His attempts to contact me have stopped, he's gotten the message that it's over. I'm in a much better place now, I've been spending time with friends who actually value me, people who didn't take sides with Ethan, people who understood why I ended things. I went on a few dates, nothing serious yet, but I'm learning to recognize red flags early, learning to not ignore warning signs, learning to value myself enough to walk away from someone who doesn't respect me. My mother and I have repaired our relationship somewhat. I told her that I appreciated her concern but that I needed her support more than her criticism, that telling me my standards were too high wasn't helpful, that I need my mother to have my back. She apologized, said she was wrong, that she'd been projecting her own relationship issues onto me, that she was proud of me for standing up for myself. Jasmine has been incredible through all of this. She checks in regularly, reminds me that I made the right choice, reminds me that I deserve someone who values me. I had to return some wedding deposits, lost money, but it was worth it to avoid a marriage that would have made me miserable. Would I do it again? Break off the engagement? Absolutely. The question everyone keeps asking is, are you sure? As if I made a hasty emotional decision, as if I'll wake up one day regretting ending a relationship with someone who didn't respect me. But I'm more sure about this than I was about marrying him. I broke off my engagement because my fiancé made offensive jokes about me to his friends and expected me to just accept it as normal, because he mocked me, because he took intimate photos of me and used them as ammunition for his jokes, because he suggested he was questioning the relationship to maintain his image with his friends. Was I an asshole for that? Maybe to him, definitely not to myself. I chose myself, I chose my dignity, I chose to not settle for someone who treated me like entertainment for his friends. Some people think that's cold, some people think I overreacted, some people think I should have tried harder to make it work. But I know what I deserve, and it's not a man who calls me exhausting behind my back. It's not a man who mocks me to maintain his image. It's not a man who gaslights me and tells me I'm too sensitive. It's not a man who tells me nobody else will want me. I deserve better, and I'm worth it.